Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to OneGreenThing's first workshop of 2023. We're thrilled that you're here to join us to talk about a new year and new take on climate action. Next slide, please. Here's what we're going to cover in today's workshop. First, we're going to define eco-anxiety and how we approach climate action here at OneGreenThing. Then we'll talk about the service superpower assessment, the profiles, the top 10 ways for you to start today on your personal climate journey. And then we'll talk about several of the tools we have at OneGreenThing, including the Joy Tracker. Next slide. So first, the American Psychological Association defines eco-anxiety as the chronic fear of environmental doom. And more people, as we experience extreme weather events fueled by climate change, are experiencing anxiety about the future. Young people, especially, more and more are saying that eco-anxiety is a problem for them. And there was actually a study in September of 2021 of 10,000 young people where 47%, or nearly half, said that eco-anxiety interfered with their daily life. Next slide. Our approach at OneGreenThing starts at the intersection of the climate crisis and mental health. Our mission is to tackle eco-anxiety through joyful daily action, leading to culture change for policy solutions. Our thought is that action can help abate anxiety. Obviously, if climate anxiety is interfering with your daily life, you should see a mental health professional. There's some great resources like the Climate Psychology Alliance and the Climate Psychiatry Alliance that can provide you access to people who are specifically trained to deal with eco-anxiety in a medical context. But for most of us, it's a constant worry that we're talking about. The second is connection, and connection lessens loneliness, which is why we've created the OneGreenThing community. And our third principle is that policy helps scale solutions. And in order for policy and large-scale solutions to work, we need to shift the culture, and that's where our individual actions come in. Next slide, please. The basis of OneGreenThing is the concept of the laws of change. The three laws of change are first, the law of identity. And this says that a person is more likely to change their behavior if they identify with the behavior, if they're the type of person. So for example, if you wanted to start a new habit of swimming, if you say, well, I swim 3 times a week, you're less likely to keep that habit. If, in other words, if you say, I am a swimmer, if I am a swimmer, I'm more likely to keep the habit, less likely if you say that you're focused on the habit. And that's one of the things in the environmental community that a lot of times we immediately go to the do this, not that, buy this, not that, instead of asking that simple question of who are you? And at OneGreenThing, we want you to think of yourself and who are you in service and how do you show up for the people you love? And that's a starting point for your personal journey in climate action. Next is the law of simplicity and consistency. And that's just, if you make the action repeatable and simple and consistent, you're more likely to see the impact of your change. And that's that concept of a OneGreenThing, a daily practice of sustainability. And finally, there's the law of amplification. We talk a lot about, in social media, we talk about the amplification of negative messages, but a lot of times what we don't do is talk about the importance of joy and how joy can also be contagious. And the more you amplify what you're doing, the more you share with others the joy you're experiencing in climate action, the new behaviors you're adopting, the new ways of thinking and how you're showing up for the next generation in service through climate action, the more others will be inspired to join. So again, those are the 3 laws: the law of identity, the law of simplicity and consistency, and the law of amplification. Next slide, please. That's the root of the service superpower assessment, specifically the law of identity. And at OneGreenThing.org, you can take the service superpower assessment. It takes about 5 minutes. Think of it like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram, and it provides a way for you to find out who you are in service to others. Next slide, please. And now we're going to briefly talk about the 7 different, what we call service superpowers. The first is the adventurer. And the adventurer is a hands-on learner who embraces the physicality of the outdoors. The second is the beacon. The beacon is focused on social justice. They speak truth to power. They're most often going to be at the podium or behind a bullhorn at a rally. Next, we have the influencer, which is all about people, people, people. And the influencer loves connecting change makers to each other. Then we have the philanthropist, which is the giver, the person who shows their love for others by donating their time and donating their resources. And then we have the sage. The sage is focused on the spiritual connection to nature and can make that moral case for climate action. Next, we have the spark. The spark is the +1 or the cheerleader. Without a spark, there is no environmental movement. So that's the person who will be happy to join you to watch a nature documentary, go to a climate rally, learn more about a specific climate solution. And then finally, we have the wonk. And the wonk is focused on taking complex scientific issues and translating them in a way that we can all understand. And the wonk is also very much focused on climate solutions. So those are the 7 service superpowers. Next slide, please. Once you figure out who you are in service and what your specific strengths are in service, through OneGreenThing, you can then be matched to a daily practice of sustainability, which is what we call a OneGreenThing. Now, a lot of times when people start thinking about OneGreenThing, they think about it in the context of like 101 ways to love the earth, but that's not what we're talking about. A lot of times we also get skepticism, like what does it really matter if I decide to skip the straw that day? But the reality is your individual action, even skipping the straw or bringing a reusable mug, even riding your bike, all of those actions are important drivers of culture change. And culture change is ultimately what we need for big policy solutions to scale. Next slide, please. Here's a quote that I have from my book, One Green Thing. The climate crisis is the biggest challenge of our time. We all have a unique role to play. Everyone is needed and everyone is welcome. Come as you are, start here, start now, discover and apply your service superpower, and let's be part of the solution together. And the reason I wrote this quote is for something that's really important, and that is sustainability is about progress. It's not about perfection. This whole movement is inclusive, and it's inclusive to everyone. And sometimes the hardest step is the first step that you take on your journey. But this challenge is going to require all of our creativity and all of our best thinkings and all of our strengths in service. Next slide, please. This is also a terrific quote that I just saw from Ariana Huffington, which is burned out people will keep burning up the planet. And this is at the center of what we do at One Green Thing. This is why mental health and well-being are so important for sustainability. It's also important when we talk about climate justice. We know that the people who contribute the least amount of carbon pollution are the people who suffer the most, and that includes Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities that are traditionally underserved, often where oil and gas and plastic production facilities are cited because of redlining and because of environmental injustices that have happened. In general, though, we need to understand that compassion has to be at the center of the solutions that we have for the new regenerative sustainable future that we can create. So when we're thinking about climate solutions, making sure that mental health and well-being and compassion and equity are at the center of those conversations are really essential. Next slide, please. So discovering your One Green Thing. Once you find your service superpower, then you can develop your own eco action plan. You can decide on a One Green Thing based on your service superpower. You can go to OneGreenThing.org. You can find your profile and then download a plan to get started today. And then also we have a great tool, which is called the Joy Tracker, because again, these actions aren't so much about you reducing your individual carbon footprint. It's not about counting your carbon calories, because that's not really the big impact that we need. Obviously, we need global policy and market solutions. The problem is that when most people hear environmentalists like me say we need big global policy and market solutions, what they hear is, I don't matter, but you do matter. But you matter as the cultural change agents. It's not so much about your math, which is why we have a joy tracker. And we want you to start identifying what green things bring you the most joy. Is it calling your member of Congress and asking for clean energy to be adopted at scale through different policies, or the implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act? If so, you're probably a wonk. Do you get joy from taking young people that you know and love outside for them to be able to unplug and connect to nature? Then you're probably an adventurer, and that brings you joy. Or maybe you're excited about looking at your home itself and doing an energy audit. There's all kinds of different things that you can do to make this daily practice a reality in your life. And that's what we mean about this new take on climate action. It's not about your individual carbon footprint. And in fact, that whole concept was created by oil and gas PR executives. And the idea of the individual carbon footprint was initially created to try to take the burden of the climate crisis away from the bad actors, which are oil and gas companies who knew for decades that their products were causing global warming. It's to try to shift that burden onto us. That's not what we're talking about at One Green Thing. We're talking about your daily practice of sustainability, focusing on joy and wellness, and for you to be an influencer in your community, in your family, and in your region as you adopt this daily practice that brings more joy into your life. Next slide, please. So here are the top 10 things that you can do, what we call the Eco Impact Top 10. The first, of course, is to vote for climate action. Look for candidates that support the policies that you believe in. Vote Green and Give Green are great resources. The League of Conservation Voters is also a terrific source for you to be educated more about the policymakers in your community and where they stand on climate action. Reduce your airline travel or consider carbon offsets. That's what I do when I travel. Obviously, I've been doing a book tour, so I've been offsetting my travel. You just want to make sure that the carbon offsets that you're buying, that there is transparency into what projects they're investing in, so you get a report back about how your money is being used. Green your portfolio if you have a 401k. If you have opportunities for investment, consider fossil-free investing. That's a lot of universities are making this move as well. So it's important to really put your money and vote with your wallet, put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Eat more plants, less meat. This is one of the top things you can do. Walk, bike, ride. It really does make a difference. Next slide, please. Reduce food waste. This is one of the top 5 things that you can do. Global carbon emissions, 8% of them come from food waste. So just being mindful of menu planning, consider composting, and limiting that food waste is really important. Switching to green power at your home, skipping fast fashion, washing in cold water, and of course, talking about the climate crisis. In addition to talking about the climate crisis, it's important to talk about how you feel and also create space to listen. Listen to young people, especially about how they're feeling about the future they're inheriting from us. So it's important for you to create that space, but also to let them know that they're not alone, and focus on those solutions that we can all be pushing for together. Next slide, please. So what now? We talked about the theory, this new take on climate action, this idea that your individual action does matter. Of course, we need global policy and market solutions. Of course we do. But that only comes when we have a culture that's willing to accept these solutions and adopt them at scale. And that's where you come in. So find your service superpower, engage in your daily practice of sustainability, use the hashtag at OneGreenThing, hashtag OneGreenThing, to share with us about what OneGreenThing is bringing you joy. Share it on social. We also have a really neat framing for you to be thinking about when you're taking your OneGreenThing, and that is this idea of being an awesome ancestor. We have a pledge on OneGreenThing.org for you to pledge to be an awesome ancestor and to let the young people that you love and that you care about know that they're not alone. Know that they have a partner in climate action, and that you personally are going to do all that you can to create a healthier, greener future. Please get involved. Next slide. Get involved with One Green Thing. Please follow and share us. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Please click subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you found this workshop helpful, please share the workshop and the resources we have at One Green Thing with your family and friends and community. Thank you so much for your time. Again, Happy New Year, and we're thrilled to spend this time with you.